Montalvo Broadcasting Network. Support MBN, Montalvo Broadcasting Network, and shop with us over at Montalvo Store. Go to ebay.com and search in the advanced search. Type in Montalvo Store. Now support Montalvo Broadcasting Network. We have a wide array of books on conspiracy, apparel, and much more. Support your favorite radio station, Montalvo Broadcasting Network, by visiting Montalvo Store on ebay.com.
Tribal, primitive, rustic, Burning Man, punk rock, conceptual subculture for the edgiest, most cutting-edge designs of jewelry today. Go to etsy.com/shop/conceptual subculture, or one word, either by going to Google or search Etsy, ETSY.com, and type in one word, conceptual subculture. You will find the hottest designs using natural stones with wire wrap rings, rough, raw, genuine, semi-precious gemstone jewelry, solid sterling silver, copper, leather, orgonite, bracelets, pendants, chokers, men's copper cups with sterling accents, eco-friendly, repurposed, original, one-of-a-kind design earrings. Support MBN by going to Conceptual Subculture on Etsy. Go to Antique Obsessions for the hottest in jewelry, antiques, repurposed, solid sterling silver, one-of-a-kind, handmade by Bruce and Jaja. Go to our Facebook, which is Antique Obsessions, or you can go to Etsy.com and go to Antique Obsessions, one word, or type it into your Google and find us there. Thanks.
If you're looking for the coolest apparel, jewelry, bracelets, earrings, the stylish and hippest clothing around, go to Poshmark.com. Poshmark.com at Anti-Culture. At Anti-Culture. The coolest, hippest apparel on the internet. Poshmark.com at Anti-Culture. Bruce Montalvo.
Continues to spread conspiracy theories.
Penchant for promoting bogus conspiracies as though they were fact.
Bruce Montalvo.
About his conspiracy theory.
This is CNN, a network of China Broadcasting System.
All is Bruce Montalvo. Bruce Montalvo is the only radio talk show host that's not controlled.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Bruce Montalvo Show. Very special interview. Joining me on this June 5th, 2019 show is a very special guest. He is an author, lecturer. He's known as a hyperspace intuitive, Stewart A Swerdlow. I'm going to read you a little bit of his bio here. Says he has the ability to see energy fields and personal archetypes, as well as reading DNA sequences, patterns. He can basically see your aura. And he is also a survivor from the very infamous Montauk Project. He doesn't need to watch Stranger Things. He lived it. Our guest, Stewart A Swerdlow. Hello, Stewart. You there?
Hi, Bruce. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Right. Okay. So I don't know if you heard a little bit of my intro there. I stated that you are you're able to see energy fields, auras, archetypes. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that actually goes back to my days at the Montauk Project. And by the way, I could not hear your intro. It was silent.
Okay.
So I don't know what you said, but okay. And so I was there from 1970 to 1983. And there I was placed in several different projects under the umbrella of Montauk. One of which was, of course, to go into hyperspace and to see colors and archetypes and the resulting tones that you could hear from those colors and archetypes. And that was the original language of creation, or what we call hyperspace language.
Wow.
Now, but unfortunately, in order to do that, they blinded me and dimmed my hearing. So I had I was blind for 29 years, and I could not hear very well. I still can't hear very well, but as a result of that experiment, I was able to use other parts of my brain to perceive vibrations that most people cannot perceive.
Wow, that truly sounds like some scary stuff. Definitely the MO of what goes on in Montauk. I mean, I've done a little research into Camp Hero Montauk facility. I mean, what I've read is just unbelievable. I mean, accounts of Spider-Men and hybrid animal humans like dogmen and all sorts of scary stuff like that, right?
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I wasn't involved that much in the hybridization, and I also have to tell you that maybe a lot of what you read on the internet isn't exactly true. There's a lot of people.
Of course.
But the hybridization programs were moved to Plum Island.
No, that's not too far. It's not too far.
Yeah, it's off the coast. And that is between Montauk Point and the southern coast of Rhode Island. There's still island where they did the experiments.
Wow. No, I've seen some hideous creatures. I've seen some footage. I mean, a lot of it you can't trust, right? It's like Bigfoot. Hell, I've even seen Bigfoot at Montauk, like supposedly going through wormholes.
Well, I think that's a little bit of a fantasy.
Right.
I don't know that ever happened. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Stewart. Well, you've written many books, right? You're an author. You give lectures. Your father was also involved in the Montauk Project, right? Or your great uncle, I believe.
No. My great uncle was the first president of the Soviet Union.
Right.
And my father was used in experiments in a base underneath El Paso, Texas.
Wow.
That was in the early 50s.
So, you said that you're a survivor of the Montauk Project, right? I mean, you said they blinded you, and they did all sorts of what sounds like torture. I mean, so they were doing torture, and basically they were torturing people to try to bring out their gift.
Well, basically, if you understand about mind control and programming, and that was perfected by the Nazis in the concentration camps.
Oh yes, mind control. That sounds German, right there. Control.
Well, yeah, but that is actually very ancient and was brought here a long time ago by the reptilians that colonized the planet. But what they did in the concentration camps and at Montauk was something called psychic driving, where they would bring a person to extremes in order to fracture the mind into compartments that they could then program into alter personalities or sub-personalities, etc. And they found out through the German experiments that the ultimate fracturing creates an image in the mind that looks like a cube with 13 by 13 by 13 compartments, so that ultimately you can have as much as 2,197 compartments that can be programmed.
Wow, that is deep. You mentioned reptilians. I've read a lot about the folklore, the Japanese folklore of the Kappa. I mean, these are the half, almost like hybrid lizard men. But I tend to think that it's more of a interdimensional, probably parasitical connection between them. I mean, I do believe that these entities are among us, but I don't think it's quite what people think. I think it's more of a interdimensional, microbial, almost macrocosmos type thing, where they come into you.
It's physical too.
Yes,
they are physically here. However, they do operate from the lower astral levels, and they can control or, let's say, possess a person through that level.
Oh, yes.
And that's why they promote certain drugs and certain, even, I'll have to say it at the risk of being ridiculed, but even transgender and gender fluid ideas which open up the physical body for possession.
Wow. Oh, so that's where all this DMT craze is coming from. The reptilians want us to be all hopped up on DMT.
Well, yeah.
Opens up the third eye, right?
Yeah, your pineal gland makes that naturally anyway. But when you get overloaded with it, then you kind of lose control of the body, and then your crown chakra opens up, and it literally you can be hooked in by any kind of technology or being that is looking to control you.
Wow. Do you think it's got something to do with the computers and the technology as well? I mean, if you break down the word Anunnaki, which many people get reptilian and Anunnaki confused, you get AI or computers. I mean, is there somehow is that like the portal, like a vessel for these interdimensional demons?
Yeah. Let me just state that I have an issue with people taking terms and then converting it into things that they aren't. Look, there's a lot of words and names you could use that you can get AI out of.
Right.
So, I mean, you can't just pick on that. The Anunnaki were not fully reptilian. They were partially reptilian. The ones who are or who want to control the human race were the Draco from the Draco star system which are fully reptilian beings, and they're androgynous. And that's why they want people to be gender fluid, so that they can control their energies better.
So that's the agenda. The gender bender agenda comes from there.
Yes. I've written about this extensively. I talk about it on my podcast every week. And this, because ultimately, quite honestly, everybody's androgynous. It's only when in mammalian life forms, when there is a split between male and female. Because if you go all the way back to creation, into the original God mind has no gender. It's neutral. See? And so they use the control system from that perspective. But yes, technology, unfortunately, has been designed to tap into the human energy field, and even into animal and insect energy fields, in order to control the vibrations, the thought patterns, and so on. That is why they want everyone to have a cell phone, everyone has to have a computer, and quite honestly, the human race has become like the Borg. Yeah. Because you walk through an airport, you walk through any public place, everybody is attached to something.
Right.
They're either on their phone or they're on an iPad or some kind of device. You don't see hardly anyone without it. You're
so right. It's like the book Fahrenheit 451. People are walking around with little seashells in their ears, like they said in the book, or probably the precursor for the headphones, right?
Right, exactly correct.
Right. Well, you mentioned yes.
Yeah. No, if you ever watch the Star Trek movies and they have the board.
Absolutely right. The huge cube.
Yeah, and that's the mind control cube.
Wow. You mentioned, when we talked about mind control, we mentioned the Nazis. I am of the belief, through my research, that the Nazis won the war. That is just something they lie to us, tell us that we beat the Nazis, right? So we don't have post-traumatic stress disorder syndrome. But they started this whole UFO, German flying machines. They were created in Germany, right? They were brought over here. Basically, one day the Nazis showed up. They said, "We can destroy you," and they showed them their arsenal of UFOs to the highest military brass in the U.S., and they got the picture from there, right? I mean, am I too far off?
Well, the Germans didn't develop the UFO, or what they call Wildcraft. That technology was given to them by beings from the Aldebaran star system. which is documented in German information. The German archives contained every bit of information that they did.
They had them on stamps, right? In Deutschland, in Bavaria, they had them on UFOs on stamps. Von Braun said that they had help too.
Yes, and if anyone who can read or understand German, there is a book called Flugschreiben über New Schwabenland, which ultimately detailed the description of how they received this technology and developed it, especially around 1937 in the Prague airport, which became a Luftwaffe field for experimentation. And of course, the Germans considered Czech Republic to be part of Germany. They called it Sudetenland. And so that's why they just walked over it and took over and used it as a control base.
Right.
And so they developed this technology with the help of the Bundeswehr Aldebaran. And they even had a base in Antarctica that they developed called Base 211, or they called it the Paradise for the Führer, which they started building in 1938 and completed in 1944.
What do you think they were looking for over there?
Well, they found under the ice, they found caverns that were temperate, that you could build in, and they built gigantic cities there, and they sent Aryan-type people to live in there and develop the culture, and they're still there. And that's why, after the war, in the end of 1947, actually 2 years after the war, the U.S. and Britain sent ships and Project High Jump,
yes,
to attack this area, and actually they were defeated and sent back to the U.S.
Wow.
55 American military people were killed.
Oh my God, so they had a huge battle royale out there.
Yes, and I went to Antarctica in 2010, and I went to several of the military bases there, and in the British base, there's a big plaque right there that says that the base was built to monitor the enemy. And then you think, okay, who's the enemy in Antarctica? Is it the penguins? Is it the seals? Who is it? But then you realize, they don't say that, but it's what's underneath.
Oh my goodness! So Antarctica, what you suppose they were looking for hollow Earth too?
Well, there is a hollow Earth. Yeah. There is hollow Earth.
Pretty close. I mean, depending on how you look at the map, it's. I mean, that's probably why they don't let you go in those waters. I mean, they'll kill you. I mean, they don't let you travel there. I can't decide to be Magellan one day and go out there. They'll shoot you, right? I mean, that's why they have the Antarctic Treaty.
Yes, and there's also an opening at the North Pole, which is actually larger than the opening at the South Pole.
Right. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but the Germans are at the south. It's the Fourth Reich at this point. And they are really waiting. They're waiting for the Illuminati to screw up, which the Illuminati is screwing up, which now they call it the deep state. They don't use Illuminati anymore.
Oh, right, yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah, so it's like, I don't care what you call them, it's still what they are. And so the Germans are waiting for the deep state to be, cause chaos, and then they're going to come up to the surface, which is why we have been seeing so much UFO activity in the southern hemisphere. And if you notice, that's why recently on the conventional news, they've been releasing stories about how the Navy is being told how to identify UFOs, and the Air Force is being told how to report UFOs when the pilots see them. All of a sudden, it's become okay to talk about that on the conventional news.
It's mainstream culture now. It's getting hard to differentiate what's news and what's movies with these people.
Well, and that's why they call it fake news. Because a lot of it is made up.
Absolutely. Through the Smith-Mundt Act being repealed, I know it's got nothing to do with our talk. Oh, it does. The Smith-Mundt Act was repealed, and that basically paved the way for propaganda, for newscasters to openly lie to you without any repercussion.
But I'll tell you what, Bruce, that there's coming a time when they will be prosecuted for what they've done.
I can't wait. Honestly, Stuart, they make me sick to my stomach. You know, I turned comedian because of them. I'd rather be a comedian than be involved with the news because of these reptilians.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. The deep state, are actually in their agenda is to actually take over the reptilians and have their own new empire using the Earth as a base.
Well, they're having wars between the reptilians, I believe, from what I read. It's the Nordic or the Pleiadian against this reptilian entity that kind of created their own bastardized Grey, right?
Well, the reptilians did create the Greys,
right?
As a slave force,
right?
Again, but about 25 years ago, the reptilians decided that they were no longer useful, and they kind of cut them away. And then the Greys, who were in danger then of falling apart, disappearing, they created their own agenda, their own hybridization program. Which is in full force at the moment as well.
Yeah, I've heard accounts that many of these Greys are actually humans that have been experimented on with massive radioactive doses. I mean, much of this stuff was done at Area 51, from what I've read. And they of course, they had to black out everything, the black marker, and they created an Area 52. I mean, is there any validity to that?
I think that's, again, an internet fantasy story, because the Greys existed for thousands of years before Area 51 ever existed.
Right.
The Greys are basically human fetuses which are grown to larger size and then mind controlled.
Oh my God! Basically. So they're partly human.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
But they're in a fetal physiological condition.
Almost like a cell.
That's why they have no genitalia, that's why they have poor digestive system, that's why they look like a fetus.
And it's so creepy that they're passing this androgynous, no sex kind of agenda to the masses, to my children, now in my time now, they're passing it to my children. Back when I was a kid, they weren't doing this. Back in the 90s, I mean, subtle. Right, but it wasn't so in your face, like this gender bender agenda. I'm thinking it's something out of this world, and come to find out it is. You're telling me it is, Stuart. Wow.
Well, the idea is, besides everything else, is to remove self-identity.
Yes.
So that no one can really know who they are. That's why they're doing all this immigration thing, and so that you don't have a nationality anymore, you don't have a religion anymore, you don't have a gender anymore. So when you don't know who you are, then they can tell you who you are.
Right.
Control you. That's what that's all about.
You mentioned immigration. We're talking about Antarctica. You think Antarctica is heavily controlled, with the military, because there is some type of extraterrestrial migration, but when I say extraterrestrial, I mean terrestrial in the sense of the word as land and dirt, extra land that we just don't know about, that of course the Nazis know about, which is why it's highly militarized. And these people, that they are otherworldly beings, because we haven't been on these extra lands on the Earth. I mean, is there something to that?
Well, Antarctica, a long time ago, used to be tropical.
Wow.
When the Earth was in a different position. However, there are, underneath the ice, there are huge abandoned alien bases. And now there are the Fourth Reich is there.
Yes.
But we have to understand there's two different things going on. Because you mentioned earlier about the inner Earth, and yes, there is an opening to the inner Earth in the southern hemisphere in Antarctica. However, between the inner mantle and the outer mantle, there are caverns and tunnels and so on that are in the inner crust, and that is where a lot of the bases are located. Not really in the inner Earth, but in the crust between the inner and outer Earth.
There's so much folklore about invisible mountains and volcanoes, and it all leads to the Hollow Earth and Agartha. All these mythical folklore. Yes. Yeah. So let's go back to the Montauk Project and similar projects like it. I mean, they had the Philadelphia experiment. They had many experiments like this going on at Montauk, right? Maybe it started there. This invisibility cloak or whatever. I mean, sometimes I'm looking out in the sky, and I don't live too far away from U.S. Army bases. And I look out, it looks like they have a ship cloaked out in the sky. I mean, this cloaking technology, it exists, right?
Well, actually, the Germans started that experimentation in 1927.
Why am I not surprised?
And the Soviet Union was right along there as well. And in fact, the Soviet Union in the late 1920s had big bases in the Ural Mountains, which they did much experimentation, and that's one of the reasons the Germans broke their treaty with the Soviet Union and invaded them, because they wanted that technology, because the Soviets would not share that with the Nazis.
Right. Oh, the Soviets were very advanced in the 90s. They were the ones working on the whole weather control thing, right? They kind of started that off, and then we kind of took that from their hands in the U.S., right?
Well, the U.S. did have its own technology. In the Montauk back in the 70s, we were doing weather manipulation. And the Soviets were doing this also since, let's say, the 30s and 40s. But of course, during the war, it was interrupted because all their efforts had to go towards the war effort. But they resumed it again in the 50s.
Right.
And so basically, what happened is everybody screwed up the general flow or patterns of the weather. And so the Earth, the energy of the Earth basically rebelled, and so there really is no such thing as global warming. That is a scam by the deep state.
Well, total farce. So beginning with the name.
Yes, but there is a change in the climate because the Earth is heading into an ice age, and that is indicated by the extended solar minimum, which always creates an ice age.
Well, I believe that, Stewart. I mean, it snowed out here in Arizona. Do you believe that? It happens sometimes, but it's just an example.
Well, it snowed in Florida, it snowed in Texas, it snowed in Dubai.
Wow.
I mean, every place that never even saw snow before, it's snowing. And in fact, even now in Australia, which is their winter time almost, but they had snow in Queensland for the first time in recorded history.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the complete opposite. They've said before, it's actually global ice. Well,
yes,
worldwide. Yes. Ice age.
Right. And with the increase of volcanic activity that puts a layer of ash in the ionosphere and blocks the sunlight, plus the physical motion of the Earth slowly moving away from the sun, which is a natural condition, the Earth is just going to get colder anyway. It's never going to get warm again.
That can't be good for the plant life if it's, right? I mean, if it's this ash you mentioned?
Here's the thing, if you go back in history, and I'm talking not just a few hundred, I'm saying tens of millions of years, and you look at Earth's climate over the millions of years, you see that an ice age is the normal condition for the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And the warmer periods are actually an anomaly in between. So we're ending at a warm anomaly that we've been in for about 12,000 years, and now we're going back into an extended ice age. But, the Earth is so many millions of years old, things survive, the whole planet isn't going to become ice, but most of the northern southern hemisphere will have extended ice coverage, and the equator will become more temperate.
Wow. Okay, Stewart, speaking of planets, you talk about Planet X, right?
Well, I mentioned it doesn't exist. It
doesn't exist. Okay, well, no. I have a theory on many planets. I believe that they're frequencies. I mean, even us as human beings, we're, light beings, frequency. We're, just right now talking to you, I'm a frequency. You're a frequency. this Planet X frequency. I mean, everybody's getting so panicked. They have Godzilla in the theaters and the old video games. He was fighting Nibiru, which is Planet X. So what's with this whole reptilian and Planet X frequency that's going on?
All right. Okay. Listen, I've been in this, for decades. I was born into this, okay, because of my family.
Right.
And for the last 50 years, I've heard, that this planet is coming and blah blah. 50 years I'm still waiting for it. Okay, it's not coming. And the thing is that there was Nibiru. And in my books, especially in my Blue Blood book and True World History book, I mentioned in 2003 that the deep state blew it up as it approached Jupiter. I mentioned this. I talked about this, and that's why.
So they got like a Death Star or something, the deep state?
Yes,
they literally...
wow. Mm-hmm. Yes, and they have this. And that's why I said from 2003 onward, all of a sudden you have all these huge chunks of rock, meteors, asteroids, all these little pieces of things.
Oh, like that Oumuamua, right?
Yeah, well, no, that was a different thing. That was actually a space probe.
Oh, they've been watching that for a while, right? What was it called? 19-something V or something?
Something like that, but it was a space probe.
Right.
And after it picked up what it needed to pick up, it took off. Back, I guess it was in the late 90s when we had that comet pass by the Earth, which I remember seeing it in the sky, had a green trail to it.
Was it Halley's Comet?
Yeah, and then if you remember, it X-rayed the Earth. Remember, it sent out X-rays, and then it made a right-angle turn and took off into deep space.
Wow.
And of course the news made it say, oh yeah, there was a natural occurrence of the X-rays. Like, no, it's not, though. Rocks don't fly past the Earth and shoot out X-rays. That doesn't happen. It was looking for subterranean bases of a certain group of beings that they were trying to find. And so it was a very complicated situation. The news, of course, never tells the truth. And
that's partly because of NASA, right? I mean, NASA is basically the Nazis.
Yes, that's correct. It was Werner von Braun that was the head of that for a long time. And he even stated when he was dying that the U.S. government, based on Hitler's old plan, was going to create a staged alien invasion. And first they were going to do terrorism, and then they were going to do asteroids and rocks flying past the Earth.
Oh my God.
And then the final step was going to be an alien invasion to make everybody afraid and acquiesce to whatever they wanted the people to do.
I think Nazis read too much comic books. And then they turned them into real life.
Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
Absolutely. These it was just crazy to just take in everything that the secret space program, all this. It's kind of intimidating to know that the Nazis became NASA.
Yes, but again, I will say this, that things are changing now because of the new administration that we have and because of who he is in league with. Things are now changing. You may notice we don't have chemtrails anymore, or very few. That's been eliminated. And a lot of things are being changed. We have a new space force that will supersede the old one that the deep state had created. So you're going to see a lot of changes in the next 6 months.
Right. No, there's a lot of weird things that have been happening, such as many anomalies like these crazy wildfires. You don't know how they got started. You don't know who's up there in space shooting what lasers. Maybe it could be a Reichstag type thing. I don't know. But in California, I mean, it definitely looked like something out of an alien movie, like Independence Day. Those wildfires. So I mean, maybe we need a space force because somebody's flying around in our inner space, being bad to us.
Well, those fires in California were actually created by people in California. Had nothing to do with space. And it has a very strong connection to Nancy Pelosi and her crew that basically control California and were looking for funding for damage.
Well, I believe that. I definitely believe that there's that element to it, that corrupt money element. But I saw some strange anomalies, Stewart, that, I mean, I wasn't there, but it looked to me like they used maybe some type of X-37B laser technology. A couple of videos show, lasers are invisible. So I don't know how or why, maybe they got this other type of laser, they're using it. I don't know, but it looked like aliens shooting lasers in the sky in California. It looked completely crazy. I mean, kids were disintegrated or lying there like if the stormtroopers came in to shoot them. It looked weird.
I'll tell you that a lot of that had to do with the people controlling California. And
I believe that. They're aliens themselves. They're reptilians. So reptilians did it.
Well, let's say they're friends with them.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things going on behind the scenes that will not make it onto the news.
Absolutely. Before we go, thank you so much, Stewart, for being on my show. It's great having you on. Just a treasure trove of information, encyclopedia of information. You mentioned the tarot. You've gotten into the tarot. What about the tarot is paranormal? What have you discovered?
Well, I don't know where you got that. I'm not really involved in it.
Oh, you're not? Oh, man.
No, but I do write about that. It is a coded secret information that began with the Waldensian people back in the 1300s, even 1200s, in order to pass coded information on to others.
I see. Playing cards, the original bicycle deck, they use that as a tarot. It's kind of like the same. It's got the same thing to it. I want to thank you and your wife for setting up the interview. I hear she's intuitive, just like you, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, she actually is descended from Waldensian people.
Wow.
And she was the cousin of Jackie Kennedy. And she has a lot of her own power as well. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, Stewart. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I mean, you got many books here. Tell my audience where they could go and find your books and read all about it.
Well, I think the best thing for them to do is go to my website, expansions.com. They can also go to my Facebook pages. I have like 5 different pages, fan pages and personal pages under my name and under Expansion's name. I have my weekly podcast that's free, open to the public, and anyone can watch it. I have classes that I do all over the world. I just did a class in Istanbul.
Wow.
And I've been in Cuba. I've been every place in the world, basically almost every country in the world already. And my schedule, where I'll be, is up on my website. So go to expansions.com and everything you need to know will be up there.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being on my show. Stewart, we look forward to talking to you again very soon. If the world doesn't come to an end.
Oh, the world will not die, I promise you.
Well, now that I know Nibiru is all BS, then I feel a little bit better. Okay.
Yes, you should be. Yeah, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Thank you for inviting me on your show.
Thank you, Stewart. Have a nice day. Thank you, and your wife so much. Thank you. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Let's get her.